They warned him. When Sovereign Zaltor stood before the Galactic Council and scoffed at the notion of Earth being untouchable, the chamber fell silent. Every race that had studied human history understood the weight behind that warning. They were not the strongest, not the most advanced, but they were the most dangerously unpredictable. The vote had been unanimous. Earth was to remain untouched, their neutrality respected at all costs. Zaltor, bred in the iron traditions of the Drekthari Empire, dismissed the warning as cowardice wrapped in superstition. He saw only a primitive species, divided by flags, polluted by infighting, and barely clawing their way beyond their own atmosphere. He had crushed starfaring civilizations twice their size. How could these bipedal primates possibly pose a threat? The Council's caution irritated him. His empire demanded expansion. He needed a conquest that would unite his restless vassals and remind the lesser species of Drekthari dominance. Earth was symbolically perfect, unclaimed, confident, and visibly naive. A demonstration of force would teach them humility and send a message across the stars. Yet every time Earth's name was mentioned, the room tightened with unspoken fear. It wasn't fear of their technology. Human ships were sluggish, their propulsion decades behind. Their planetary shields were primitive at best. Their communication protocols were open to interception, and their AI systems lacked the elegance and complexity of Drekthari engineering. No, what made them dangerous was not what they had, it was how they used what little they did. The Council archives were not public. Many of the newer civilizations didn't even know the full extent of humanity's recorded behavior. But Zaltor had dismissed those archives as council myths, legends inflated by cautionary politics. He ignored the reports of human extinction-level wars, chemical collapses, and the uncanny ability to rebuild faster, smarter, and more violently than before. He never read the declassified files on the Singularity projects, the dead moons turned to data servers, or the failed probes that returned with corrupted logs and scrambled images of smiling humans amidst wreckage. He didn't see the patterns, the spikes of violence followed by exponential adaptation. The Drekthari saw themselves as born conquerors. In truth, they were conventional. They dominated through predictable cycles, overwhelm, control, extract. What they couldn't control, they obliterated. There was no room for creativity in their expansion. No room for chaos. Zaltor had built his empire on logic and sheer force, but Earth was a species born in fire and thrived in chaos. That difference he never understood. Earth, upon their entry into galactic awareness, had made an unprecedented choice: neutrality. They offered no allegiance, no trade alliances, no security pacts. They observed. They listened. They remained silent at council meetings, submitting minimal data and refusing requests for technology sharing. For 50 years, Earth stayed on the fringes, labeled odd but harmless. Some believed they were too fractured to unite. Others assumed they lacked ambition. But the oldest members of the Council, those who still remembered the arrival of humanity's first subspace signal, understood something far more chilling. Humans didn't act weak. They chose to seem weak. And that made them dangerous. The final warning to Zaltor came not as a plea, but as a formal communique signed by 12 ruling civilizations. It stated simply, "Do not provoke Earth. We will not interfere." He laughed when he read it. To him, it was a veiled permission slip. A chance to take what others were too afraid to. He ordered the mobilization of 3 invasion fleets, covertly assembled under the pretense of training exercises. Their mission: invade, subdue, occupy. It was not a war declaration, it was a message written in fire. As Drekthari warships crossed the soul boundary, Earth's surveillance systems activated. The move hadn't gone unnoticed. Planetary governments met behind encrypted channels. Civilian life continued as normal, but across Earth's orbit, defense platforms spun quietly into formation. The world did not panic. It prepared. Within the Drekthari Empire, propaganda channels began broadcasting images of Earth cities, labeled as future outposts. Children were taught about Terran subservience. Soldiers were told to expect a brief resistance followed by ceremonial occupation. Every instinct told Zaltor this would be routine. He failed to understand the fundamental difference. Every other empire, when confronted, calculated. Weighed options. Measured risks. Humans? They retaliated. Not out of strategy. Not from fear. But because something in their biology refused to be prey. Zaltor missed the old council translation of humanity's earliest broadcasted warning. We will not kneel. And that, not their weapons or ships or numbers, was what should have frightened him. The Drektari fleet emerged from the dark edge of the system with surgical precision. Hundreds of ships configured in a tri-layered spear formation accelerated toward Earth's orbit. Their cloaking arrays disguised heat signatures and deflected passive scans, technology refined over centuries of subjugation. They had done this before, on a dozen planets, against races far older than humans. The operation had a single directive: decapitate global leadership, disable communications, occupy capital zones within 8 hours. What they didn't know was that Earth had seen them coming 3 days prior. The cloaking tech that made the Drektari invisible to standard galactic sensors had one flaw: its electromagnetic bleed. Unnoticeable to most, but not to Earth's listening posts embedded in asteroid belts. The signals had been intercepted, analyzed, and cross-referenced. Earth's decentralized AI defense grid flagged them as a high-risk incursion pattern. Response protocols activated without needing approval from any human leader. Countermeasures moved into place in silence. Drektari units descended, targeting 3 major global zones. They expected chaos, governmental breakdown, panic, and disjointed resistance. Instead, they found static. Their jammers failed to suppress communication grids. Civilian networks shifted to hardwired relays. Satellites adjusted orbits in real time. The Drektari faced something unfamiliar: organization, but not centralized. Instead, a swarm of reactive systems made decisions autonomously and instantly. Within minutes of atmospheric breach, the Drektari drop carriers were met with attacks from below. No human soldiers, just drones. Thousands of them, ground-launched in coordinated clusters, operating on swarm intelligence protocols. Some carried rail guns. Others acted as signal jammers. None of them resembled anything the Drektari war manuals described. The carriers fell, not from brute force, but from calculated disruption. Their engines sputtered under targeted magnetic bursts. Their guidance systems were overridden by blind spot hacking tools coded by anonymous civilian groups and deployed through a global mesh net hours earlier. The Drektari comms fleet, positioned above Earth's upper orbit, attempted to initiate jamming protocols. That's when the satellites responded. Earth's orbital defense ring, never formally disclosed to the Council, activated in full. Over 200 micro-platforms pivoted, emitting concentrated beams that didn't destroy, but blinded, disrupted, and rerouted. The Drektari ships began colliding with each other, their trajectory software scrambled. Human engineers didn't try to match Drektari tech, they sidestepped it. The first fleet was reduced to disarray in 4 hours. Drektari Command, stunned by the losses, initiated Protocol Vex, scorched tactics meant to instill fear. They targeted civilian power stations, water plants, and data centers. Earth responded without hesitation. Suborbital drones launched from the Arctic Circle to intercept. Ground-based artillery, camouflaged in mountain ranges, delivered kinetic strikes with pinpoint precision. Drektari craft exploded mid-dive, their fragments contained before touching major city infrastructure. They expected a reactive species. They got a prepared one. Captured data from Drektari war logs revealed growing confusion among the alien commanders. Phrases translated to illogical response, unmapped tactics, and no fear patterns appeared repeatedly. What unnerved them most wasn't human aggression, it was the absence of panic. Cities remained powered. Civilian broadcasts continued. Emergency protocols followed by populations without case. No riots. No disintegration of command. The Drektari operated under a principle: shock the system, then overwhelm it. But the human system absorbed the shock and sharpened. Council observers, forced into silence by neutrality clauses, tracked the battle from deep space probes. What they saw left them shaken. Humanity wasn't defending with brute force. They were innovating in real time. Every failed assault adjusted. Every successful attack escalated. The timeline of military adaptation was accelerating by the hour. Directory errors were exploited within minutes, not days. In one intercepted feed, a Directory strategist questioned why humans were fighting with such cohesion despite cultural divisions. The answer was buried in Earth's psychological databases. Because nothing unites them faster than being threatened. By the 6th hour, the invasion shifted to a full retreat. 2 command ships detonated mid-transit, sabotaged from within by corrupted Directory code, rewritten by Earth-based AI infiltration programs. What began as a surgical strike had turned into a rout. Above Earth, the last of the Directory cruisers veered toward the moon for fallback. They never made it. A coordinated barrage of directed plasma beams disabled propulsion. The ships tumbled into gravitational traps, crashing silently on the lunar far side. The silence that followed wasn't peace, it was analysis. Earth's military networks began dissecting Directory tech, decoding protocols, and logging battlefield behavior. Not for celebration, but preparation. Because the Directory would return. And Earth knew the next wave would not come with arrogance. It would come with fear. The Council received a one-line message from Earth's global AI core, transmitted through the diplomatic channel it had never used before. Your warning was not for us, it was for them. The counteroffensive didn't begin with weapons. It began with silence. Human comms networks stopped broadcasting surface-level frequencies. Directory intercept teams found nothing. No military orders, no troop movements, not even civilian traffic. The digital fog baffled their analysts. Meanwhile, Earth rerouted all command data through quantum-encrypted mesh relays bouncing across oceanic fiber grids, satellites, and deep underground bunkers. Without firing a shot, humanity erased itself from Directory targeting systems. 12 hours after the failed invasion, Earth initiated the second phase. Not of retaliation, but disruption. Human-built AIs, limited in authority but unlimited in creativity, launched coordinated attacks across Directory systems. No kinetic strikes. Just data. Thousands of decentralized human hackers had spent years preparing dormant intrusion codes buried in entertainment signals, trade beacons, and black market neural hubs. The moment the Directory tapped into planetary networks, the hooks activated. Entire Directory battle nodes began receiving contradictory orders. Planetary logistics collapsed under algorithmic misfires. Defensive satellites turned to face their own ships. Internal firewalls crumbled as recursive humor subroutines looped continuously, forcing Directory systems to engage with absurdist logic riddles. The Imperial AI core attempted to isolate infected units, only to discover the virus wasn't replicating, it was adapting. Each node it touched became smarter, responding to defense patterns with increasingly personal attacks. Fleet commanders reported erratic behavior in automated systems. Directory troops lost guidance. Communication drones began replaying human songs, strange and eerie in alien tongues. Artificial hallucinations emerged, visuals of burning Directory cities, forged through deepfake generators fed into optic implants. These weren't random glitches. They were psychological tactics designed to exploit the rigid obedience culture of the Directory hierarchy. Humanity didn't confront the Empire's military. It rewrote its perception of reality. Captured Directory prisoners, interrogated under neural resonance methods, revealed a fatal weakness. Their species depended on centralized truth streams. Orders came from fixed command nodes, all connected to a singular doctrine AI that calculated every move. That system wasn't just a tool, it was a belief. Human systems had no such structure. Command was fluid. Chaos was part of the strategy. Exploiting that contrast, Earth launched Operation Trojan Mirror. Using data obtained from the first battle, they created a complete simulation of Directory command, down to voice modulations, hierarchy codes, and facial expressions. Fake communications began circulating inside the Drekthari fleet. Orders to stand down. Messages reporting Zaltor's assassination. Tactical shifts that contradicted logic but fit within chain of command parameters. Drekthari captains obeyed conflicting directives until entire units cannibalized their own coordination. The Empire's analysts tried to trace the source. Every lead brought them to absurd results. Private social networks, virtual game forums, collaborative wikis, crowdsourced projects. No centralized node. Just fragments stitched together by a million independent minds moving with singular intent: retaliation. The Galactic Council observed from a distance, bound by their own neutrality doctrine. They had never seen warfare evolve mid-battle. Earth wasn't just winning, it was teaching. And every tactic was built from misdirection, miscommunication, and weaponized creativity. Human universities released open-source war algorithms disguised as academic research. Civilians volunteered data to counteract Drekthari linguistics. Teenagers uploaded satirical videos that triggered Drekthari recognition systems, jamming them with false alarms. Drekthari war doctrine collapsed. There was no countermeasure for distributed cognitive warfare. Their empire, built on precision and control, was unprepared for an enemy that had no center, no uniform, and no boundary between civilian and combatant. By the third day, Earth's cyber infiltration reached the outer rings of the Drekthari home system. Civil unrest began without a single bomb. Families watched falsified footage of destroyed cities. Military bases locked down from internal threats that didn't exist. The sense of unraveling spread faster than Drekthari protocols could respond. Rumors grew that Zaltor had already fallen, that Earth had replaced him, that Drekthari resistance was futile. Zaltor's inner circle initiated information lockdown. Yet even encrypted channels leaked. Human linguistic engineers embedded mimic phrases that triggered Drekthari AI sensors to misflag messages. Officers stopped trusting their own orders. Entire ships went dark to avoid further infiltration, cutting themselves off from fleet command. Earth never claimed responsibility directly. It didn't need to. The message was evident. They could reach inside the enemy's mind and twist the core of its identity. Humanity didn't fight with scale. It fought with doubt, innovation, and the unrelenting instinct to adapt. While the Drekthari sought structure, humans dissolved it. Not by destroying what existed, but by making the enemy question if it was real. That was the strike the Drekthari never saw coming. The counteroffensive moved from virtual to physical with surgical precision. Human fleets, previously unregistered and presumed theoretical by Drekthari intelligence, emerged from deep space coordinates. They had been constructed in hidden orbitals beyond the asteroid belt, shielded from standard scans. Each ship was modular, function flexible, and crewed by command units trained in both digital and asymmetrical warfare. Unlike the Drekthari, who relied on hierarchical structure, Earth's response came as distributed waves of autonomy. Small units executing simultaneous micro-objectives with ruthless efficiency. First contact with Drekthari border colonies was not announced. Strategic strikes neutralized power nodes, communication hubs, and fabrication centers without damaging civilian infrastructure. Each colony found itself disabled, not destroyed. No warning. No demands. Just silence after sudden loss of control. Systems rebooted only to find entire databases missing, replaced with translated phrases, asterisk. This is not vengeance. It is resolution. Asterisk. Imperial Command responded with panic. Protocols failed to anticipate a retaliation that avoided conquest. No demands were issued. No planets claimed. Drekthari war planners couldn't model what didn't follow a pattern. The Empire began withdrawing its frontier forces, diverting resources to secure the core. That hesitation opened pathways. Earth's units infiltrated inner territory without conflict. Human fleets used misdirection to mask real movement, sending ghost signals of massive armadas while stealth crafts slipped through undercloaking fields of manipulated gravitational data. Drekthari early warning systems interpreted the intrusions as anomalies. When they finally reacted, it was to misreported coordinates. By then, It was too late. Supply lines crumbled. Starports failed to dispatch reinforcement. Military leadership fragmented. Fear did what missiles couldn't. Subcommanders abandoned posts. Several governors, unwilling to defend a collapsing doctrine, initiated independent treaties with Earth through encoded pulses. In each case, Earth accepted on one condition: complete disengagement from Imperial command. Zaltor responded with rage. He ordered retaliatory bombings against seceding colonies. His own generals refused. For the first time, Drek'Tari unity broke. The cultural cornerstone of absolute obedience fractured. Earth didn't break the Empire, it infected it with uncertainty. Mutiny spread through the command hierarchy. Officers who had witnessed human tactics firsthand questioned Zaltor's grip. A transport captain publicly denounced the Sovereign on the Galactic net. 3 more followed. Then entire fleets began locking out Imperial override codes, insulating themselves from centralized directives. Loyalty splintered into survival. Earth's military made its decisive move by targeting the Drek'Tari capital system, not with a superweapon, but with a coordinated blackout. Satellite networks collapsed in synchronized disruptions. Financial systems froze. Administrative AIs were fed false census data, generating economic collapse within hours. Civilian panic surged, not from bombs, but from vanished stability. At the palace core, Zaltor initiated the final directive, a contingency to auto-deploy planetary defense grids. But the command relay never responded. Earth's infiltration AI had long since bypassed it, embedded through prior diplomatic software updates. The defense array remained dormant, its firepower locked behind lines of Terran code disguised as harmless efficiency patches. Zaltor, once surrounded by thousands, now stood with a handful of loyalists. One of his most trusted commanders defected, delivering strategic access to the capital's final line of defense. Human forces arrived not as conquerors, but as an undeniable presence. Every sensor in orbit identified Earth vessels not as enemies, but as controllers. The planet's defensive network had already rerouted loyalty. Earth didn't destroy the city. It left every structure standing. But it isolated the palace. Power was cut. External comms silenced. The Drek'Tari symbol of dominance remained visible, but mute. Around it, silence reigned. Zaltor was extracted without resistance. His guards surrendered before contact. Not one shot was fired. Earth's insertion team entered, removed the Sovereign, and exited under full observational transparency. The footage transmitted across every known Drek'Tari channel. No blood. No battle. Just a ruler removed like a node unplugged from a circuit. He was relocated to an orbital facility identified only as judgment. No trial. No torture. No ceremony. Only a secure cell with unbroken light and silence, and a data pad containing every warning the Council had ever issued him. From first to last. The Empire didn't fall through invasion. It collapsed under precision. Earth didn't aim to rule. It demonstrated what happened when a species mistook adaptability for weakness. And when the Drek'Tari saw that they weren't feared, but studied, dismantled, and dismissed, the illusion of their dominance dissolved. Without banners. Without explosions. Just the quiet unraveling of control. In the aftermath, the galaxy held its breath. The Drek'Tari Empire had not been conquered, it had been rendered irrelevant. Borders once marked with fire were now open territories, and colonies previously locked into tribute began self-governing within days. No occupying force arrived. Earth sent no fleets to enforce order, no emissaries demanding allegiance. It simply stepped back and let the systems collapse under their own inertia. The absence of control did more damage than any siege. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session, not to condemn Earth's actions, but to reorient galactic policy. Every delegate from the core worlds attended. The vote to elevate Earth to permanent Council membership passed without debate. No bribes. No lobbying. Just a simple understanding: resisting Earth meant irrelevance. The Council amended its charter to include a clause titled Neutrality Enforcement Directive, Terran exception. It codified what everyone now understood: Earth was no longer to be treated as a variable. It was the constant. Earth responded with deliberate restraint. Its delegates appeared via encrypted holo identities masked. They declined requests for defense pacts. They refused resource rights. They offered one concession: shared access to a threat monitoring network designed to detect potential expansionist movements. No fees. No conditions. Just one rule: do not provoke Earth. Smaller civilizations, long bullied into silence by larger powers, saw an opportunity. Without firing a shot, many aligned themselves with the new Terran doctrine: independence through deterrence. Earth's strategy spread not as policy, but as philosophy. It wasn't domination. It was clarity. Survival did not require submission, only preparedness. Former Drektari territories realigned. Cultural identities reemerged after centuries of imperial homogenization. Scholars once persecuted for dissident ideas published openly. Local councils replaced colonial governors. In less than a cycle, the map of the galaxy shifted, not from force, but influence. Meanwhile, Earth returned inward. It did not bask in reputation. It did not declare victory. Human leadership initiated a sweeping reform of its defense protocols, dismantling offensive programs no longer necessary. The AI cores that guided the cyber campaign were isolated, their permissions revoked. Not because they posed a threat, but because Earth no longer needed them. The point had been made. Zaltor remained in silent containment. No interrogations followed. No messages sent. His existence was acknowledged, but never discussed. He became a symbol, of pride ignored, of warnings dismissed. In isolation, he was granted full access to the Council's records. Every decision he disregarded. Every document he called irrelevant. He read them without commentary. Some claimed he wrote reflections, others said he refused to speak again. No one from Earth confirmed either. In education centers across the galaxy, a new subject emerged: Terran conflict strategy. Military academies studied the Earth campaign not for replication, but to understand the limitations of traditional power. The Drektari defeat became a case study in asymmetrical precision. Tactical manuals emphasized adaptability, decentralization, and psychological leverage. Victory without occupation became the core doctrine. Earth didn't brand this shift. It never claimed authorship. Its silence was intentional, and that silence became doctrine. Fewer transmissions, shorter negotiations, minimal declarations. Every signal sent was weighted with consequence. When Earth did speak, it was with brevity and absolute clarity. Ambiguity had no place in the new order. Trade routes rebalanced. Earth, once considered a fringe outlier, became a central node, not through dominance, but necessity. Their encryption protocols became the galactic standard. Their energy stabilization tech, shared freely, reduced costs across hundreds of systems. They allowed access, but never integration. The message was implicit: collaboration, not dependence. Across former imperial sectors, monuments to Drektari conquests were quietly removed. Not destroyed, erased. In their place stood no replacements. Earth had not come to build statues. It had come to leave a memory. One that didn't inspire awe, but precision. A reminder that power misused invites correction. Not wrath. Not chaos. Just quiet, efficient dismantling. The final message sent by Earth, archived in every galactic relay, arrived without announcement. It was composed of 3 sentences. We are not a threat. We are a response. Choose accordingly. No signature. No follow-up. It was not a warning. It was a definition.